Hey everybody, Tillian here. I wanted to make a first impressions video on Anaxa, but honestly his kit was just so interesting to me that it really required me to spend more time with it and dig into it a little bit more, as well as finding out some incredibly cool things that other people are using them for, or with different team formats, just because I don't have every character in the game, I don't have every light code in the game, so obviously I can't test every single, every scenario. But there's been some incredibly cool teams that people have been doing with Anaxa, and it's really just caused me to sit down and think about him a little bit more than maybe I initially thought. So sorry it took me a little bit longer to get this out, but I really wanted to dive into him a little bit more and give my thoughts on it. So let's just jump over to the game here. And this is my Anaxa here. We're running an E0 S0 Anaxa. We have okay stats, nothing wild. Fully level traces, and then we're just running just the scholar set, so nothing crazy. We're also using Azumo because I honestly run him as a sub DPS with the Herda more often than not, but we are working on a hyper carry set as well, just to kind of give details of what we're looking at here. So really quick TLDR, if you wanted to think about his playstyle, he has a basic attack and a skill attack. The skill attack is a bounce attack, so remember how bounce attacks work. There is some prioritization with the bounce attack to help with AoE formats, as well as increased damage for every character on the field. This will help the bounce attack be more fluid and evenly distributed by all people on the field in AoE content. However, as you get to blast or even single target damage, bounce effect obviously works very, very, very well in that content. His ultimate is an AoE attack that hits all parties on the field. It actually has 160% attack scaling, so it's actually not a massive nuke, but realistically, it's what it does that causes some really cool things. It's going to allow all weaknesses to be inflicted to a target, and it's also going to give it a control resistance state that effectively allows you to skip any follow-up attack. So it's not going to fully delay or stop action or even delay action value, but if a mob or an enemy has a follow-up attack, it will outright eliminate that as an option. So I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't recognized how many different enemies actually have a follow-up attack until getting Anaxa. It is an interestingly really cool way that you can interact with the gameplay. So just to keep in mind, that is something that he does. Now, his talent is where things get really interesting and where this weakness implant really kind of comes into play. If you want to read through this, it's a lot of content here of what this is actually doing, but effectively what it states is that every time he does a basic or skill attack, he's going to implant a weakness for 3 turns at least. If there is more than 5 weaknesses implanted, so if you start a battle, normally it's going to be 3. If you use his technique, it'll be 4, and then in Apocalyptic Shadows, it will be 5. If you have up to 5 weaknesses on a target, he's going to do an additional skill free of charge. There will be no skill points used, and it will regenerate energy in the same exact way. So this is where things get kind of really, really interesting with this kit. This is kind of the main focus of how he functions and plays. It's the idea that after you get 5 and or more weakness implants, he will do a free skill with no additional skill point usage and 100% regen of energy, the same as a skill would be in any format. So that's where things get kind of crazy. His technique effectively is just going to create a way for you to implant whatever specific weakness you want to start a battle. This is really nice to get to that 4 stack on normal encounters in endgame, or in Apocalyptic Shadow, you'll start off with 5 right away, which is incredibly useful in regards to picking and choosing how to initiate a battle, and will create one extra less step of additionally adding weakness implant, which obviously synergizes with the additional free skill. Looking at his traces really, really fast, this one is also very, very interesting. Effectively, it's going to make sure that his basic is going to give the same energy regen as the skill. This is a very, very nice quality of life improvement for the kit, because this means that if you are skill point negative as a team, or if you're trying to save skill points in a different way, Perfect example would be if you're running him in a sub DPS format with, say, the Herda. You can basic attack and he's going to get the same energy regen, which allows him to basically cycle through his ultimate pattern the same way he would if he was skill spamming. And that way you're not losing out on any battery functionality of his ultimate or lowering your functionality in ult rotation turns. This technique is also, this talent here is also really, really interesting to me. I actually love this talent. I hope they actually continue to do stuff like this in the game, specifically for units like Anaxa that have a lot of flexibility and usability in their kit. The TLDR of this is basically it's going to, anytime that Anaxa is the only erudition character on the team, he's going to give himself 140 crit damage. So this is important if you're using Anaxa in a hyper carry format. Most cases, if he's the only erudition character, it's likely going to be that he's the primary hyper carry in that team, and he is going to effectively be using either buffers or debuffers in not another DPS class, but that's not always true. There's some interesting things you can do with this. If there's at least 2 characters that are erudition, he's going to increase the damage of all allies by 50%. The kind of the ideal synergy of this would be the Herda, obviously, who Anaxa's pseudo kind of built for effectively to kind of work within that team and battery her really, really well. Effectively, what this does and why I think it's so cool is it creates 2 different examples of why he has a good use case, and it doesn't require the balance of both of them being active in order for it to be kind of done well. So we're not lowering the standard of one way to play him to make sure that though both aren't active at the same time, and then we're not misbalancing the character, and allows like kind of really good gameplay from 2 different perspectives, which I really think this is a good move. I think they should do this more in the future, specifically for characters that are as unique as Anaxa is. Lastly, his last talent here, nothing too crazy. For every 1 different weakness type an enemy target has, the damage that Anaxa deals to the target ignores 4% of defense up to 7. This is just a basic weakness, defense ignore that is effectively built into his kit alone. So that kind of goes over the TLDR of Anaxa. Just to kind of recap all of that, basic and skill, after 5 implants of weakness, he's going to additionally do another skill. Remember that basic also regens the same amount of energy as skill, which makes sure that you're not losing any of your ultimate uptime or ultimate rotation turns. So that's a beautiful quality of life. Anytime he's over 5 weaknesses, he's doing a free skill with no skill point usage. Also gaining more energy, also very, very useful, right? All of that works together in a really, really neat and interesting way that creates some really, really interesting use cases that I just didn't expect. So a great example of this would be if you look at something like, where is it? If you look at something, not his, but if you look at Rappa's light cone, for example, I've seen this in a couple different places, but like Rappa's light cone will increase the break effect by 60%. You would never think to use Anaxa in a break format. So if you throw him on a break team, additionally adding weaknesses, especially all weaknesses that allow you to break the toughness bar, allows all parties on the team, not just the main DPS, to lower the weakness bar, which obviously helps break. He probably won't be doing a ton of break damage just because his scaling isn't based on it, but you are going to get a little bit of boost there. We're going to initially immediately regenerate 30 energy, which is going to get us really close to being able to ult, if not guaranteed ult on the first turn. Beautiful there. Allows us also to work around the idea of needing an attack rope versus an energy rope. And then every time you use basic, 2 basic attacks advances the wearer's action based off this Ration like buff that's after an ultimate. So this is obviously really created to help with Rappa. So when she's doing her ultimate, she's using enhanced basics. And then allowing that third one to kind of action advance her up to 50% quickly. This works with Anaxa, like 100% works with Anaxa. And in a sub DPS role, where you're effectively going to be close to, if not at, 2-turn ultimate rotations. He's basically going to be 50% action advanced, almost the every ultimate rotation turn. So that's just a really interesting thing that I hadn't thought of, that just comes out into the gameplay and allows him to just have some functionality that you wouldn't think that's usable. And that's just one of the few things I wanted to talk about. That's something that, you know, you could get really, really deep in diving into his character and what he's available to do. But that I have so many different examples I can kind of go into that would obviously be a much longer video that I'm recording for today. But that's just one of the many examples of how his kit functions beyond what you just look at from a simple perspective of how does the kit function, that I wanted to bring as an example to the video today. So I'm going to end the video there. I'll probably record a video here shortly, just about gameplay, like showing the gameplay loop as a hyper carry and a sub DPS, some tips and tricks around that. But I really just wanted to get my first impressions out there. And realistically, man, he's just a super, super interesting character with a lot of really unique design choices to his kit that really allows some really intriguing and interesting gameplay that I'm just super, super excited to explore and to see the creativity of the community as well. He's just one of those really interesting kits that just, I think we're gonna see some really cool stuff in the future as we get more options from different kits and utilities, and as more people get hands-on with him and we see different ways that he can be used. I'm just really excited about this unit. I hope you guys are too. I hope this sparked a little bit of creativity in you. But yeah, that's going to be it for me today. I hope you're having a really, really good rest of your day. Enjoy it, and I'll catch you guys next time. Billion out.